Hello friends, Techman Pat here. Today we're talking home theater systems. More specifically, can a soundbar, rear speakers and a subwoofer be enough to make for a surround sound cinema-like experience? To answer this question, we have the Sony HT-A5000 soundbar, the RS5 rear wireless speakers, and the SW5 300-watt wireless subwoofer. But what's exciting about this Sony ecosystem is the latest software update that brings 360 spatial sound mapping to the masses. So how does this relate to the cinema experience at home? Well, in today's world where surround sound technologies like Dolby Atmos and DTS:X are no longer bound to individual physical speakers or channels, content creators are able to design sound in a three-dimensional stage. This of course works great in a cinema where you have 20 odd speakers surrounding the audience, but how can you experience this at home without spending a fortune on dozens of speakers and meters of cables? Well, it could be that 360 spatial sound mapping is the answer. So stay tuned, let's see what Sony has to offer to remedy this plight. Big thanks to Sony for sending this audio system for review. Let's get started by rolling the intro. What is 360 spatial sound mapping and can it take your home cinema experience to the next level? Well, put simply, it is a way to create sound that surrounds you without the need for physical speakers in every location where that sound could come from. On paper, Sony claims to create 12 phantom speakers that will generate an immersive sound experience near that of being on stage with a band or in a cinema. That 360 SSM technology isn't specific to this soundbar. It is a way to utilize Sony's products to generate the full cinema, Dolby Atmos and DTS:X sound experience without dozens of physical speakers. So how does it work? Well, first of all, you need to run the sound field optimization setup that creates a specific soundstage that matches your room. Meaning, it doesn't matter where you place your rear wireless speakers or where the soundbar is located in relation. Since every living space is different, optimization is really the way to make it work. Each device has a built-in microphone to manage this calibration. Now, this allows for very precise location of each speaker to then use in the algorithm to set the sound waves that create phantom speakers around the room. But why does this need to exist? Well, there has to be a way to bring Dolby Atmos and DTS:X surround sound technology into the home for everyone, not just those who have purpose-built cinemas that cost as much as a Tesla. Now, the best way to describe this is when you go from SD to HD. I'm not joking, there are dozens of phantom speakers playing all around you, just like in a cinema. Now, I have to preface that this effect is very difficult to capture on a microphone, so bear with me, I'll try and describe it as best I can.
73 miles downrange, 47.5.
So let's take a look at the hardware we are testing with. Wall mounted under the Sony X90L, and more on the TV later, we have the HT-A5000 soundbar. A great movie and music experience that I think will have you reconsidering which soundbar to get, if one at all, especially if you are on the fence. The Sony HT-A5000 kicks off at around $1,088 at the time of filming, which for soundbars of this caliber is actually an excellent price, with 5.12 channel speakers supporting Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, and with a HDMI 2.1 pass-through for your latest console, more than likely a PS5. Now, this pass-through can do VRR, ALLM, 4K at 120Hz, and 8K HDR with the right cables, of course. The HT-A5000 has two up-firing speakers for overhead sound, two beam tweeters, and three front speakers for a very wide soundstage. In the 5.12, the 2 means there are two small subwoofer drivers embedded in this bar, and the low frequency response is good for the size, and in a small room it would be enough to not have an external subwoofer, but it's no replacement for one. From my testing, I noticed the soundstage is very broad for a single location soundbar. At 1.2 meters wide, this is a testament to the surround speaker's capabilities and the firing positions of the drivers, and of course the case design. But let's be clear, you need the rear speakers to take advantage of the 360 spatial sound mapping technology to its fullest. The top firing speakers are another story. Sony calls this the vertical surround engine, which on paper fires sound at the ceiling, hoping it would reach you at the sitting position by bouncing off that ceiling. If you've got high ceilings or low ceilings, it will depend. Now, my testing wasn't actually very scientific, but I did hear a lot above me, and honestly, it was quite powerful, almost overwhelming, and I wish there was a way to turn it down, especially each channel's strength. What's unique about the soundbar is the beam tweeters, where the little drivers are hidden away in a long chamber. I played some Dolby Atmos nature videos, and the birds sounded really crisp and felt like they were flying all around me with that 360 spatial sound mapping engine. Now, the soundbar is smart home enabled, supporting Apple AirPlay 2, Chromecast, Google Home, Alexa, and if you have a Sony TV, you can utilize the Acoustic Center feature to use the Sony TV speakers as a discrete center channel, which sounds great on paper, but for some reason, the option was grayed out for me. I'm not sure why that is. The dialogue enhance feature is fantastic. As someone who has to turn down the volume so my son can stay asleep, this is a lifesaver. It is a great way to hear what's actually being said, even in a Christopher Nolan film. I'm looking at you, Tenet. However, there is one issue that I ran into, and that is the audio sync across the whole system and certain apps on Apple TV. There is no latency between each of the wireless speakers and the soundbar, but I noted that there is a 25 millisecond delay between the visual and dialogue. So in the settings, I had to bump the delay up by 25 milliseconds. There are a few limitations. There is no bass or treble adjustment, which seems like a pretty strange omission, and there's no graphic EQ, which again is a shame. Now, I think on its own, the HT-A5000 is impressive, but it's only when you add the rear speakers and extra sub that you get the cinema experience. At 649 Australian dollars, the Sony HT-A5000 300 watt subwoofer may be overkill for some homes, but if you love the low rumble and pumping bass in your life, then go for it. You get a powerful 180mm driver and a passive radiator that eliminates wind noise with what I would call an aerodynamic exhaust design. It's super quick to set up, and of course, as is now tradition with many systems, it is wireless, and I love it. The bass response is really strong. You can really feel it. You can of course adjust these settings via the remote, but even at max, the rumble feels crisp with no distortion. Now, in regards to wireless performance, from my testing, the subwoofer has no discernible delay between action and subwoofer rumble in movies, so no qualms there at all. To complete the 360 soundstage in the back, we have the Sony SA-RS5 rear up-firing wireless speakers, each providing 90 watts of power. Do note they are pre-configured as left and right, so you do need to place them in the right locations, otherwise you'll get a nudge from the system. Both are wireless and sync immediately to the A5000 soundbar. Of course, Apple isn't the only one who can do seamless connectivity. You may think these two speakers are expensive additions at 849 Australian dollaroos, but they are wireless with one up-firing speaker, a soft dome top tweeter, a wide directivity woofer, and dual passive radiators, all in one very small package. And as you can see, it is cord-free because not only are these guys wireless, but they also have 10 hours worth of battery life, which translates to roughly 3 Christopher Nolan films. Now, if you run out of juice, you can take a 10-minute break, and the RS5s will charge up to 90 minutes of runtime. Not bad in a pinch. Personally, I managed to hardwire these behind the couch so I don't have to worry about the battery. So what about sound quality? Well, the pair sound great. They drive the rear soundstage while also elevating the surround sound effect for Sony's 360 spatial sound mapping.
Left front, right front, Center. Left side surround. Right side surround. Left rear. Right rear. Left front height. Right front height. Left rear height. Right rear height.
It is with this combination of soundbar and rear speakers that the 360 spatial mapping comes alive. What I felt was real sound all around me. I'm not sure if I could count if there were 12 phantom speakers hovering in a dome around me, but there were sounds coming from areas where there were no real physical speakers. Interestingly, the RS5s cut out when I put my big head in front of them to try and listen to it, but only for a second, and then it was back in sync. This really isn't a problem. You aren't putting your head right up to the speaker while watching your favorite show. Let's talk about music and 360 spatial mapping. Now, I signed up for a 30-day trial of Tidal, the high fidelity music streaming service. It's $35 a month for the highest plan. So if you can imagine sitting in the center of your room, surrounded by your favorite band, having each instrument sound playing from a specific physical location, then you are kind of close, I guess. Ultimately, you hear the music coming from all directions, but clearly separated by instrument type, depending on the genre, of course. And it's the closest real-life experience to running on stage and getting spear tackled right off. That experience kind of hits hard. What makes this technology unique is that it is all achieved with only a soundbar and 2 speakers, and of course a subwoofer if you have one. The left and right surround speakers do not exist physically, and yet you can hear sound coming from those directions. So let's talk about movies, because you aren't buying a soundbar just to listen to music, right? So how does it perform in films? Well, the 360 SSM gives you literally 360 degrees of sound directionality. Jets flying above your head. Yep, there it is, you can hear it. Bullets flying around, start ducking. Cars racing. You don't even need to look to know where on the grid you are. Now, I watched Interstellar for the 5th time, Gran Turismo, the new animated Spider-Man films, damn good by the way, and then tested Oppenheimer. Spoilers ahead, specifically the nuclear explosion scene. Yes, they did manage to blow it up. And these had full surround sound support and took advantage of this setup, and it was awesome. So look, I know we have been talking about the soundbar, rear speakers, and subwoofer, but I need to dedicate a few notes to the TV, and I promise it's worth it, so don't skip. This is the Sony X90L, a 65-inch full array LED panel. Why should we even be looking at such a TV? Like, it's a combination of two things, price to performance. This TV has incredible HDR performance, color reproduction, brightness, responsiveness, and connectivity, all in a very reasonable price. Mind you, it's not OLED, but as far as full array LED TVs go, this is a high recommendation from me. So, final thoughts. Listening to music is a treat with 360 spatial sound mapping. Watching films is awesome, and gaming is hella fun. And in my mind, combining all these devices together creates a very rich and immersive experience that is easy to set up. It requires less hardware, less cables, and is about, let's say, 80% of the way to having a full-blown cinema experience in your home. What's also interesting is the level of support for this technology. I tried YouTube Music, and lo and behold, 360 spatial mapping was enabled. But there are real limitations. These are physical limitations. After all, the drivers in the device are small. Physics is physics, but for the size, they drive a pretty powerful soundstage. Now, to achieve the best experience, Sony's help guides notes a max distance of 10 meters between the rear speaker and a soundbar, so keep that in mind, I guess. The unsung hero here is Sony's sound optimization system. They remove your room's shape and size as a variable on the path to good sounding audio, enabling a technology like 360 spatial sound mapping, and ultimately, it's good. It's very good, but not perfect. After all, it's algorithmic magic. However, as far as tricks go, enabling a wire-free theater experience at home at a very reasonable price is something I can get behind. So friends, the total price for the audio system I used for testing here, excluding the TV, is 2,500 Australian dollaroos, depending on promotions. But you can pick up other Sony sound systems that support the 360 Spatial's technology and get a similar experience. Huge thanks to Sony. Thank you very much for sending this system for review. Check out the links below where you can purchase your very own, and check out other systems that support 360 SSM. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in another video. Bye!